More Clark Repro parts. A few years ago, we lost our exhaust pipe supplier of 20 years. You would think it would be relatively easy to find a place that can make short pipes for an exhaust, but actually the Corvair pipes are extremely difficult because they're critical dimensions that must fit exactly. We have crossover pipes for 60 to 63 cars, 64 to 69 cars, the van, and early and late turbo. These are the outlet pipes for the turbo out of 2.5 inch. And of course we've done manifolds. Chrome tailpipes for the 65 to 66 turbo. Chrome tailpipes for the 62 to 64 turbo. All of our mufflers are custom made for us. This is the early round style with correct tailpipe. 64 through 67 with the smaller tailpipe. Then in 67 to 69 with smog engines, they went to a larger tailpipe. We also have reproduced the original dual exhaust for the 140 engines, all welded, ready for you to install. This is a 62 to 64 turbo muffler. To make both this and the 65 to 69 muffler, we sent them original NOS mufflers and told them to go ahead and cut them open, make them just as exact as they could. Most of you probably recognize this Clark Repro part. Special spare tire hold-down bolts for the early models. Cardboard deflector for an early AC. We've reproduced every single wheel cylinder, including the 1969 fronts. We've reproduced virtually every coil spring that was ever offered for the Corvairs. This is the early model front floor, available separately as left or right. You can also order the rear floors separately, left and right, or you can buy a set of all 4 pieces and save some money. You can also add the trunk bottom and save even more. These are the late model front floor panels, also done out of the original thickness steel. The rear floors for 65 to 69, and the trunk bottom. This is the 65 to 69 rocker panel replacement outer panel, done in the original thickness for the convertibles, right to the original profile. We have the late model rear fender patch panel for both sides. Patch panels for the front of the late model cars are virtually impossible to produce by hand. We also have the patch panels for the rear of the front fenders for the late models. These panels go in the very rear corners of the cars under the tail lights, and when this run is exhausted, we will not be reproducing them. This is a reproduction of the late model battery tray area. This is our aluminum power glide pan, the inside of the Clark oil pan, the external finned surface, Clark aluminum valve covers, the inside of the Clark aluminum axle cover, and the exterior side of the aluminum axle cover. We recently added some high quality cocoa mats with a rubberized backing and a nice quality binding and rubber heel pad. These are available in 7 different colors. Over the years, we've reproduced just about every rubber part, including some that were already on the market but didn't meet our quality requirements. The original style 1965 wheel trim has a fairly large profile, and I believe that's why General Motors had to go to the small ends. I don't believe they were able to form the complete wheel trim with these detailed ends all as one stamping. So to have a full set, you need the 4 big pieces and then 2 small ones that go on the front, and then 2 small ones that go on each end of the rear ones. The 66 to 69 wheel trim were all one piece. Ours are nice, but they're a little bit softer than the original. This does allow you to form them perfectly to the wheel opening, and they end up looking great. We have an excellent reproduction of the rear cove trim. I have 4 1964s, and I had kept NOS rear grills to go on those. I won't be using the NOS. Our REPROs came out way better. The same is true with the 64 rocker trim, dog legs, and wheel openings. I don't have a single NOS piece that can compare with our REPROs. We have the 1964 front grille piece. A couple customers have complained that it is slightly distorted on the bottom. You can only see that if you're down below the bumper looking up. 3 times the company tried to tell me that they couldn't do these, and I kept begging them to try. These are the door sills for the front of the 61 to 65 FC, Greenbrier, van, 95, whatever you want to call them. These are the weather strips for along the convertible top of a 62 to 64. Over the years, we've convinced the company to make a few improvements to them. This is the same weather strip kit for a 65 to 69 convertible. Many customers have assumed that our weather strips are just the same as they can get from other suppliers, and this isn't the case. Many of the weather strips are custom made to our specs or are made just for us. Example of this would be the front weather strip and also the rear engine weather strip for the 65 to 69, which is definitely different than the front trunk. These are the 65 through 69 coupe and convertible door sills. I know you're probably tired of me saying this, but again, these are better than just about any NOS that I had saved for myself. These are door sills for the 62 to 64 convertible. We also have the ones for the 60 to 64 coupe. These have the correct frosted effect between the ribs. I'm often asked what the difference is between the coupe and convertible. The convertible heater outlet was below the door sill, but on the coupe door sill, the heater grill actually came up and they had to recess the door sill to accept that grill. We would never be able to afford the cost to tool up for doing early or late model 4-door door sills, but I found a local company that's able to take the coupes and stamp them. These were the first prototype ones that he did. You will have to drill new holes for the late model, and the body by Fisher is not in the correct position. On the rear doors, you'll see that there is an embossing where the body by Fisher would go. It's so close to the center pillar that you may or may not want to bother putting an emblem in there. Also, the front ones can be installed either like I've got them here, with this being the front end, or they can be installed like this with the body by Fisher towards the front of the opening. The way they come from us, you've got your choice. And these are the early 4-door. Again, doing the same thing. We're taking the coupe and we're turning them into 4-door lengths. This really isn't anything you can do at home because this is die stamped on the ends on both the early and the late 4-doors. The early ones, you're probably going to want to put the body by Fisher on both the front and the rear because they come to us with the holes already stamped for the rivets. On the front doors, the body by Fisher are only 4 inches further to the back. I'm often asked to speak about the reproduction parts process. While I'm talking about this, the rest of this video will be background photos from the last Clark show, which is every other September, with the next one being September 2013. The biggest problem with reproduction parts is money, money, money. The largest expense being tooling. Rubber parts can go from $800 to $2,500 with no metal inserts. Plastic parts can be $1,500 to $9,000. Door sills often $20,000 to $30,000. Wheel trim can be in the $15,000 to $25,000. Headlight bezels $30,000 to $40,000. FC gas tanks around $30,000. And this is just the tooling. I estimate we've probably spent $1 to $1.5 million in tooling in the last 40 years. Then there's the actual per-piece production cost. This is, of course, additional. The actual production is normally 500 to 1,000 piece minimum order. You have to pay 50% of the tooling up front and then wait anywhere from 6 months to 3 years for a prototype sample. Our average break-even on parts is usually 3 to 6 years, but we've even had some slow-selling items that we reordered 8 to 10 years later, only to learn that the new price is so high we had only broken even on the first runs. Customers have asked why Mustang and Camaro prices are often less than Corvair. I assume they are ordering 2 to 3 times bigger orders and probably selling way more. This allows costs and prices to be less. Even parts we haven't had in 15 to 20 years don't fly off the shelf. Examples would be the late model door sill. Took 3 years to break even. Molded insulation we hadn't had for 30 years, and that took 4 years just to break even. When we went for a reorder on the molded insulation, the minimum they would sell us was a full tractor trailer. What depends which reproduction parts we'll do? Well, mechanical is the most critical, so we try to do those first if it's important. Then we'll do the trim and other parts that we think there's some demand, and we always take your suggestions too. Even when you have the money to do reproduction projects, there are still problems. Companies go out of business, they lose the tooling, there's fires. We even tried shipping tooling back and forth so that we would have it, only to find out later that it cost almost as much to adapt tooling when a new company took it over. It took us 2 years to find a new exhaust manufacturer after we lost our supplier of 20 years. And prototypes. There can be bad prototypes, like the full fin cylinders that they were supposed to make 30 thousandths thicker, and they goofed and made them 30 thousand thinner. They'd already run and machined all 1,000 pieces, and they told us to either take them or get lost. The prototype we got for the FC gas tanks was absolutely perfect. However, the production run of 300 gas tanks had questionable welds. We were able to get the tooling back, but no money on the gas tanks, which we had to destroy. You better believe we really checked out the manufacturer that's now making the gas tanks. We have 400 to 500 suppliers and 20,000 plus parts. Some are actually sold separately, some are only sold as parts of kits. Keeping them all in stock is quite a job. We never know when they're going to come up for reorder. We may have average monthly payments to suppliers of $50,000 to $200,000. Now let's say we've got 10 large repro projects that were started within the last couple years, and we've got reorders for old projects. When will they come in? We have no idea. It could be anywhere from 6 months to 2 or 3 years. What happens if 2 or 3 of those come in the same month? We could end up owing $200,000 to $400,000 that month. A small company can't possibly handle reproduction projects like that. Gad, I can hardly handle projects like that. Thanks to your great support with orders big and small, we will do our best to keep the Corvair parts coming in the future.